Class, I'm creating this video for you to help you remember how to do GCF and LCM and also how to do fractions. And by fractions I mean adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing fractions. Because this is the part of the test where you'll have a lot of word problems but you won't be able to have a calculator. So to start off with, we're going to look at GCF and LCM. Because in order to find and solve fractions you need to be able to use GCF and LCM. When you're starting to look for GCF and LCM, always start with the prime factorization of a number. This will give you all the prime factors of a number. There is more than one way to make a factor tree, but a factor tree is simply made by multiplying two numbers together that would give you that starting number, and then working your way down till you have nothing but prime numbers. In the case of 48, I multiply 12 times 4. Neither one of those are prime, so I keep going. I get 6 times 2, and for 4, 2 times 2. Well, the 2's are prime, so I can stop there, but the 6 is not, so I keep going. I'd like to apologize if you see any typos or for the handwriting because I am using a mouse. But I'm making this video just to see if it can help you guys get a little bit of a review for the EOG, even if you don't get a chance to ask the questions in class. So we get 36, which is 6 times 6. We're left with 2 times 3 and 2 times 3. Now, at this time I'd like to rewrite my number so that I have a nice little list of the prime factors of each number. After you have the prime factorization of each number, and this doesn't matter if you're looking for GCF or LCM, you make a Venn diagram. A Venn diagram is used to sort your numbers. So, we will rewrite our numbers that we had at the top. For 48, we had 2 times 3, times 2, times 2, times 2. You will notice that we do not have any exponents, because at this time you don't want to use an exponent. You want the numbers in their prime form. It will make it easier to work with. Well, let's first work from the inside out. We need to find the numbers or factors they have in common. In this case, they both have 1, 2, so you could put 1, 2 in the center of the bubbles. They each have 1, 3, so you could put 3 in the center of the bubbles. And they each have a second 2, so you could put 2 in the center of the bubbles. Well, you can't add those last 2 because there's no more 2s of 36. And you can't add the last 3 because 48 doesn't have any more 3s. So, you have now been given the GCF. You simply multiply 2 times 3 times 2, which is 12, which is now your GCF. So your GCF in this case is 12. Well, you might ask, well, where does LCM come in, and what do I do with the leftover numbers? Well, that's how you get your LCM. You take your leftovers and put them on that number's side. Then you multiply everything together, giving you the LCM. So, 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 2 times 3 gives you the LCM of 104. Now, you notice, well, you might say, well, all I did was multiply the two numbers together. No, you did not. You multiplied their common factor, greatest that is, common factor together, and their leftovers. This gives you the lowest common multiple. If you just multiplied the two numbers together, yes, you would get a common multiple, but not their lowest common multiple. Okay? Let's try one more. So we have 15 and 40. Start with the prime factorization of the number. Three times 5. 4 times 10. Keep factoring this one until you have nothing but prime numbers left. Okay? After you have the prime factorization, what do you make? Yes, a Venn diagram. Okay, what do they have in common? 1, 5. The 1, 5 goes in the center. So what is their GCF? Yes, 5 is their GCF. Okay, LCM is the leftovers. That's 3. 2 plus 2. 2 times 2 times 2. If you multiply all of that together, all of the leftovers and the center, you get the LCM is 120. This will work with any number you need to find the GCF or the LCM. Also, it also will work if you have 3 numbers if you create a third bubble and sort accordingly. Remember, look at the word problem. If it says lowest number, LCM. If it says greatest, it's looking for GCF. Also look at your answer choices. If your answer choices are small, you're looking for the greatest common factor. If your answer choices are large, you're looking for the lowest common multiple. On to fractions. When working with fractions, it's important to remember if you're starting with a mixed number, it helps if you change this to an improper fraction, and if you have a whole number, you change it to a fraction. So this way you have like terms and you won't have to do any regrouping. So to change 1 1/2 to a mixed number, you multiply then add. 2 times 1 gives you 2, plus 1 gives you 3, or 3/2. Notice your denominator does not change. Same thing again, 3 times 4 gives you 12. 12 plus 2 is 14, 14/3. Denominator does not change. You multiply, then add, and it all goes over top of the same denominator. To make any whole number into a fraction, you simply put that whole number over 1, giving you a fraction. Because anything divided by 1 is 1, and that, after all, is what this fraction bar means, is 1. Now let's look at adding fractions, because adding and subtracting fractions is the basic. You've been doing it for a very long time now. And like I just said, if you have a mixed number, you want to change them to an improper fraction first. So, 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10, giving you 10/3. 1/2 is already a fraction, you move it over. Now, we have to have a common multiple to give us a common denominator. In this case, your common multiple would be 6, making it your common denominator. So, you ask yourself when you're making equivalent fractions, what did I multiply my denominators by to give me my common denominator? In this case, 6. Well, I multiplied 3 by 2. So, whatever I multiplied my bottom number by, I multiply by the top. Remember, math is all about symmetry. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. In the case of 1/2, you multiply 2 by 3. So, you multiply your numerator by 3, giving you 3/6 is equivalent to 1/2. Now you add or subtract depending on what it's asking you to do. In this case, add. So 20 plus 3 gives you 23/6. And you ask yourself, is my fraction in simplest form? No, it's not. It's still an improper fraction. So let's change it back and simplify if necessary. So to change back an improper fraction to a mixed number, you divide. 23 divided by 6 is 3 because 6 will only go in there 3 times, which is 18. Well, now to get your numerator, you ask, what's left over from 18? 23 minus 18 is 5. 5 becomes your numerator, or your leftovers, and 6 is your denominator. And we're done because that fraction is in simplest form. Next, you multiply. When multiplying fractions, you multiply straight across, then simplify. So in this case, we have 3 times 2, which is 6, and 5 times 7, which is 35. There is no common factor between 6 and 35, so yes, your answer is simplified, and you are done. And last but not least, when dividing fractions, you have to do several steps, not hard steps, but several steps. And we will take these steps one at a time, and then I'll tell you how you can create more problems for yourself. So your first step is to make your problem look like a big fraction. Remember, fraction bar means divide. So we set it up. 7/8 divided by 3/4. The first number is always on top, the second number is on the bottom, because it is, after all, 7/8 divided by 3/4. Now you need to get your bottom number to equal 1. How do you do that? By multiplying by its reciprocal. And a reciprocal is any number you multiply by to get the number 1. So to get 1, we multiply 3/4 by 4/3, giving us 12/12, or 1. Because remember, anything divided by 1 is that same number. So you can cross out the bottom now, because now that it equals 1, you don't need it anymore. Well, some of you guys will ask, well, I need more work with reciprocals. Well, here you go. A reciprocal is the flipped or number that you multiply a number by to give you 1. So in the case of 1/2, it'd be 2/1. In the case of 3/4, it'd be 1/3. In the case of 1/4, it'd be 4/1. In the case of 5, it'd be 1/5. It goes on and on. 3/4 would be 4/3, and so on. Those are numbers, and those are reciprocals. That is why it's important to write your whole numbers as a fraction first, so that when you have to write its reciprocal, it makes a lot more sense. Now that we've crossed out the bottom, we need to multiply the top by the same thing we multiplied the bottom on. Remember, math, symmetry, fair. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. So, we're ready for our last step. You multiply straight across and simplify. So, 7/8 times 4/3 gives you 28 over 24. Well, once again, we're left with an improper fraction. And how do we simplify? You divide. Divide 24 into 28, and you get 1. And what's the leftover? 4 over 24. Well, in this case, 4 over 24 is not simplified because they have a common factor, 4. 4 will go into 4 one time, and 4 will go into 24 6 times. Therefore, giving you your simplified form of 1 and 1/6. Remember some things to look for. If you see the word of in a word problem, it usually means to multiply. Whether you're finding percent of a number or whether you're finding the fractional part of a number, of usually means to multiply. Read carefully. Follow your steps. Use your scrap paper. If you have a calculator, use it on the calculator active part of the test. And remember, if you want some extra practice with this, just create fractions out of your head. Just pull numbers together, write them as fractions, and work them out. It doesn't matter what you do, just get some extra practice in.